Somebody asked the question earlier before it started, was your poetry published anywhere?
No, it hasn't been published anywhere. This, it's premiering tonight. You all first hearing it. It's hadn't been published yet. There will be a book of poetry. This piece came out of over 200 poems. So I sifted through 200 poems to put this piece together. So there's quite a bit left if I want to do a book of poetry. Thank you, Sydney. Wayne, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Thanks, Gilbert. Thank you, Gail. Anybody else have any questions? Feedback? Confusion?
Stanley, I have sort of seen via you all the process, that you went through. I mean, man, this was phenomenal. The editing. I mean, you said you said you weren't tech savvy. I mean, you just the amount of detail and the symbolism that came through the editing process and the historical references. I mean, this was truly a labor of love, and you can tell in the final product. Right? So, thank you. I mean, it is a lot. Some brother, I think Wayne said, I need a moment. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody, thank you for that, Brian. Somebody said the same thing before when they did the table, and it's like, it's a lot. I'm going, yeah, it is. And we need to get through, we need to weed through it, we need to work through it so that we can get beyond it. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, we've literally been carrying this trauma since 1619, and we've yet to really deal with it as a community. And so mainly because we're told that we need to get over it and move on, and it's not important. And, which is why our youth is to this day still, yelling Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And then people's response is, well, all lives matter, which tells you right there just how important it is to have your say in a society. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. A lot of the the tech stuff, I promised myself I would come out of this pandemic better than I went in. I'm hoping that we all do that on some level. So yeah, I did learn a couple of tech trips. I have more than enough apps on my phone to play with, and I played with. And so I was able to put the actors in different costumes in different places and stuff. If they watched it tonight, they was like, I was not there. He did that. And I did not wear that. And when did that happen? Because, we literally put it together in like 2.5, 3 weeks. They really didn't have much rehearsal at all. They had very little rehearsal. But I knew that the people I called to the table would rise to the occasion, that they were professionals, and that their talent would come through. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to chew off, and trying to make it look like a multimedia piece.
Yeah.
Most readings that I've done, I've done. It's you just sit there and you're in your box and you just read the script, and I'm going, well, that's not going to work for this. Because it's, how do I get across that this is multimedia, that this is all kinds of stuff, sound effects and film and video and all of that kind of thing. Because, when I stage it, literally all the actors will have cell phones, because all of this was born out of social media, actually, is what inspired the whole piece.
Stanley, you have a couple of questions from Virginia and from Femi. We'll start with Virginia.
Hey, Virginia.
Hey, wonderful. Everybody did an amazing job. It was brilliant. Sorry, I was on a class and I was, split focus for probably the first half, 45 minutes of it. But my first thing when I first saw it and everyone introduced themselves, it was, I don't know if this was intentional, but to me, I saw the present day person and who they would have been if they were not taken from their land. It just hit me right off the bat. I was like, wow, that's powerful, before they went into their costume, each person. That was powerfully and beautifully done. It was just brilliant. And I just wanted to know, I know everything came out of present day stories or even historic, but what gave you the idea to put this present day with this ancestral backstory or connection? How did you come up with that concept? And your costumes were beautiful and everything.
Thank you for that question. It was important to me to say, not only to myself, but to the community, as the poem says in the end, Sankofa, you must go back and retrieve what is rightfully yours. We have this thing in America, especially with Black people, are told to not deal with our past, to forget the past. You cannot have a present or a future unless you have gone and dealt with and resolved and released the past. Then you can step into the now and the future freely without all that baggage. Otherwise, the universe will bring it right back around again, which is why we're today still screaming Black Lives Matter. This isn't our first Black Lives Matter movement. We those of us of a certain age know, we've been doing this since the 60s. I added the ancestral key into it because that is another thing that is so important to us. Every culture on this planet pays homage to their ancestors. That's a very important thing to do. You pay homage to your ancestors and you pay homage to your dead. That is what you do. That's one of the things that grounds you and keep and let you know who you are and where you're going. We've been stripped of all of that. You know what I mean? And so I just wanted to introduce African spirituality, not religion, African spirituality, because it's different, back into the minds of the viewers who are watching it. Some of you will recognize it, some of you will know it, and some of you won't. But I think I'm hoping on some kind of cellular level that it will spark some interest for you to know what that's like, to know where it is really our responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility at this point to know where we came from. We're gonna have to do that on our own. And we gotta stop. No one's coming to save us, Black people. We're gonna have to save ourselves. There's all this talk about, we just did 9/11. Every year 9/11, we go through every one of those names. We say their names. It's important. You can't say it's not important. But if you think about and then the Holocaust comes. We commemorate the Holocaust, rightfully so. Pearl Harbor, rightfully so. But you have to think about how many people we've lost since 1619, since the Middle Passage, and we just keep, stuffing it away like it's not important. It's no big deal, and we're so much in a hurry to get to the future, only to be met by the past again. So that is why I introduced that phenomena in the play.
It's beautifully done, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing, or maybe even ask a question. I know you want to do it for stage, but I feel like it is so much bigger than that. There's so much information that knowledge that so many can gain from this, because like you said, they keep going back to all those other elements that have happened in the past, and it's okay, but we do need to go back, and we do need to remind ourselves, and we do need to keep growing, moving forward, but reaching back. And I'm wondering, past getting to the stage to do it, is there another element that you want to try to reach or to develop?
There are all kinds of possibilities. It could be a mini series, it could be a film, it could be animation. You can take parts of it and just do an animation of it. There are a lot of things that could be done. I also wanted to make the connection, which I don't think young people do, because we've been told not to deal with our history, to understand why police brutality is today and where it comes from. It's, you know, they didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, you know, I'm just going to mistreat Black people. It's a pattern. You know what I mean? There's a and because we don't understand that connection, we can't even begin to know how to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much on social media, but only certain people see certain things, and it needs to get past that.
Yeah.
It needs to get that. Yeah. So congratulations. This is beautiful.
Thank you. Preachin.
This is beautiful. All the best with it.
Thank you, Virginia. We got Femi. Is her hand raised?
Yeah, this is Femi. Can you hear me?
Hey, Femi.
Yeah. Stanley, I thought you did a wonderful job. Brought up a really interesting dilemma that I have been pondering recently, which is how we in this country, and probably because of the colonization of the world, worship a Christian God. And we don't know where we were before that Christian God. You know, and you touched on that a little bit in there. I don't know what I'm trying to say, except that I know spiritually about the Orisha and what I feel as a Black person. And I know that our ancestors were not allowed to worship their gods. So they translated that into the Christian God so they could. They pretended they knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then as time went on, we became that.
Yeah.
So that's what.
That's very true. I that's why I put that one little thing on that one meme that I ran in on Facebook that said, we are a spiritual people, and some of us have forgotten and become very religious. So there's a very difference between being spiritual and being religious. So we have to, I just wanted to make that a point that you have to connect with, you know, it's okay to be religious if you bring the spirituality with it. You can't have, you know, to have one without the other just kind of leaves you vacant. You run into a lot of trouble that way. We have to give ourselves permission to go back. We don't have to hide anymore. We don't have to hide our Orishas and our ancestors in saints anymore. We don't have, you know, our ancestors and our grandparents and great-grandparents did what they could. They made a way out of no way, God bless them, and that's why we're here today. But we have to stop asking for, I'm not in this mood for asking people for permission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm over that. And so that needs to stop. And the apologies need to stop. We don't owe anybody any apologies. You know what I mean? We don't. And so all of that needs, that whole idea of, you know, having to make white folk feel comfortable all the time because they feel uncomfortable about what the history is. Well, okay, well, get it and being comfortable with us, you know, work it out, do what you got to do. But this has to be dealt with. And if we had dealt with it before, we wouldn't be dealing with it again
now.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just sick of you know, we've been around a couple of decades, so you know, we've seen this come and go. This is not new to us. You know what I mean? And so you just go, oh my God, I can't believe these babies are going through this too. We tried to do everything we could, and here we are. You know, so integration was that thing, I called it a Trojan horse, because somehow we cut the wrong deal. You know, it's like having an agent work out your contract, and they worked out a really shitty deal. You know, we didn't ask for the right things. You know, we didn't get the better deal out of this. So here we are. We're the only people who worship a God that don't look like us.
Okay. So we have to incorporate what we spiritually know with what we worship.
We don't spend our own money. We don't have our own names. We don't speak our own language. We don't have any of those things.
Yes.
They're not going to give it back to us. You know,
No.
Somebody who takes from you, somebody robs your house, they're not liable to return the property. So you have to go back and get it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to go and get yours. And that's what I mean. And I did this. I knew this stuff was heavy, and I knew it was painful. And it was a process. It was painful for me to see it on Facebook. It was painful for me to write it, but it was cathartic, and I needed to do it. And I realized that if I needed that healing, that the rest of the community need that healing too. And that's kind of why I wrote it.
Well, you truly got the right titles. You're just speaking to the choir for sure.
And also when we do Black plays, it tends to be very one-dimensional. It's usually very you got to be dark to be Black. You got to be obviously Black, and you got to be hetero. It's that strength. I'm like, no, our community is much more sectional than that. So when the police stop you, they don't ask you if you speak Spanish. They don't ask you if you are gay or straight. They don't ask you if you're Republican or Democrat. They don't ask you if you're Christian, Muslim, and they don't ask you any of that. You just Black, and they will whoop your behind just like they whoop, the next person. That you know what I'm saying? None of that comes across their minds, and they don't give a flying fajita. You know what I'm saying? So to me, we need to understand. In that sense, we're definitely in this boat together.
Yes, but Stanley, you got a few more questions here. Julia Lima, thank you so much, Femi. I appreciate that.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Julia, do you want to unmute your device?
Yes, thank you. Stanley, first I want to say bravo, bravo, bravo. This was an excellent piece, and I feel that it should be in the archives of Never Forget, because you hit on the moment of, like you said, we never forget 9/11. The Jewish community never forgets the Holocaust. We need to have something like this in the forefront of our future generations' minds, so they can see where they came from, what was done to them, so it's not done again. And you hit on a lot of things. Like you say, it is a lot, but it's worth every minute of it. I mean, you touched on the brutality of our Black youth, of trans women, of just Black people in general, and the things we went through the South, lynchings and things like that. And all of this is stuff that, regardless of how you feel, you need to see it because it happened. And we can't forget that it happened, because we keep forgetting and forgiving, and we can't do that anymore, because we are not on a path of enlightenment or getting any better, because of the fact that, these things are still going on. Yeah. And I just thank you for this piece. I'm not going to take up much of your time, but I think it's a very, very important piece. I would like to see it as a film or a documentary, a full blown, like, with more intent, whatever you couldn't do now, you can do, like, more in the documentary. So kudos, my brother. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, brother.
And thank you for doing this.
Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Julia. So somebody asked a question in the chat, Chris Shepard. He said, is this going to be available anywhere for others to watch after tonight? We recorded this, and so we're going to try to load this on YouTube for a limited time. So that's the hope. We'll see what happens. Technology be with us. So that's what we hope to happen. Thanks, Chris, for tuning in. And so now the next person who has a question is Tanisha. Tanisha, you want to unmute your device?
Yes, I did want to say something. I think Nancy did have her hand raised before me, though. Nancy, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I just wanted, Stanley, thank you so much. You know what? It's like Brian said, it was so much in this. I think I forgot. I was trying to type something in the chat, and I think I forgot how to type. But what you have done is to blend everything, all of your creativity, the costumes, the words, the music, all blended to make this such an experience. And it's an experience that hopefully more than just the people on this Zoom will be able to see, because it takes you. You start watching it, and the one thing leads to the next thing, to the next thing, and you are so, it's almost interactive.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Mhm.
To pull people in and to be interactive and to be involved in it. It was hard for me to even watch it because I've worked on it so much and looked at it and blah 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 blah. And so I don't know what it's like for somebody to see it for the first time. So this is it's value for me to have this Q&A. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tanisha.
Absolutely. Hey, the word I got from tonight was community.
Yeah.
So that's who we are.
Yeah.
And Sankofa, thank you so much. I want to just congratulate you, Baba Stanley, and to all of the participants, and just the humbleness at which they allowed themselves to kind of be used as vessels to bring these words forth. I felt just the emotion from just all of your actors, Rhea, Kimberly, when she did her piece, and I know how hard this can be because we've all been living in this Zoom situation, but you guys really made it work. So I just want to say bravo, congratulations to everybody. And also just with what you're saying of, we cannot forget our history. We have to educate. We have to re-educate people who don't seem to get it. I mean, there's a big discussion right now talking about lift every voice and sing, as if it just got here yesterday. Hello, this was written in 1900 by Charles Weldon Johnson. What is wrong with? So it's I'm sorry, James Weldon Johnson. Yes. And it's sad and it's painful that people feel like there's something new about history. And it's just that, they haven't had to be aware of things. And so now to be re-educated, it's frustrating, and yet it's necessary. And I thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you, and I thank everybody who came tonight to support. It's wonderful to see Brian Chandler. How you doing? And Marion, Cappy, and so many people. And I know some people had to leave, but thank you for this community. Thank you, Kimberly, for being the catalyst to tell them you can do it, Stanley, because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten to experience this. So thank you, and bravo.
Thank you, Tanisha. I appreciate
it. Again. Oh my God, I miss you.
So we have a lineup here. We have Maisha, and then Keith Williams, and then Wayne. So we'll start with Maisha.
Maisha. Hey, Maisha.
Hey, good evening. Excellent. And I want to thank Kimberly for inviting me. Yes, but I think that for me, the thing I felt most powerful about was this was something that was organic. You didn't set out to write this play.
Right.
So the process was organic. So it really speaks to me that it came from your heart. And the other thing that I really enjoyed about the play was that you brought it back to spirituality, because one of my favorite quotes comes from Dr. John Henry Clark, and he says, "It was our spirituality that got us into this situation, and it will be our spirituality that will lift us out of it." So I mean, I just believe in that so strongly, and to see it, and I hope and pray that I do get to see it in on Broadway, because that is a message that we do not see in those kinds of venues. And the other thing that I just wanted to ask was the play, the production. So the vision of the play of the production is to be a multimedia production, as similar to what we saw tonight.
Yeah. So each of the characters have their own thing that they do as they're part of the community. So, for instance, Ola Kun, there'd be like a black box theater, and in the back would be a turntable and a sound table. And so she will be responsible for all of the sounds, effects, and the video clips that you see throughout the show. Neighborhood Nana, who's like the, she's of course my political consciousness, as she's coming through the, this homeless woman who's a homeless vet, that nobody pays attention to homeless vets on the street, but this is a woman who is, she looks to be 80 years old, but she's thousands of years old. And her real journey is to come down there and collect all of the souls that have been unjustly taken due to racism. And he is the last one that so she adopts him and he adopts her, thinking, oh, this woman reminds me of my nana, my grandmother, I'll adopt her. But the whole time, everybody's there at that festival to get him, as they say, walk towards the light, to get him home, because he doesn't realize that he's dead. He shows he's been brutally murdered. And as they say, a lot of times when people are brutally murdered, their spirits jump the bodies and will wander. And so he goes back to the place that's most familiar to him. And what is that? An Afro Punk Fest. So I'm gonna go here and hang out because that's where I'm most familiar and that's where I'm happiest. But then that's where the journey starts to get him back home. So everybody has some sort of thing, they're not just actors on the stage. Like I want people who have several skill sets, like, that they don't usually get to use, especially on a Broadway stage, that you can be bilingual, that you can sign, what a wonderful skill set to have. But a lot of actors don't get to use that on stage. So I wanted to just really tap into a lot of those skill sets, as well as include them as part of the community, because they are part of our community. It just dawned on me, what happens if you're deaf and the police is yelling at you from behind and you don't hear them? The police don't understand that you're deaf.
Right.
And he thinks that you're not being compliant. That must happen.
No, it has happened.
What is it like to have a father? We all have relatives who are on the police force. We're not against the police. We have loved ones who are in the police force. What happens when and there have been several stories like this, when they're killed and mistaken for the perk because they're Black?
Because they're Black.
All of those different dilemmas, there's all these different ways that our communities are affected. And so I just wanted to use the cell phone. I had this image of everybody coming on stage in the beginning, and they get on the subway and they have their cell phones and everybody's into their cell phone. And from there, everything jumps off from the social media, the TikTok, the Facebook, the Instagram, all of that.
Right.
And that's what grounds it in the contemporary life, even though I go back.
Thank you, Maisha. Did you have another question, Maisha?
No, that was it. And that was very powerful what he said about, because there are so many souls because of the way they transition that are still.
That's a lot of souls.
Yes.
That's a lot of souls, and that's an awful lot of trauma. And I often say that DNA has memory.
Yes.
We're carrying that trauma.
Yes, we're carrying that trauma. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Maisha. I appreciate you coming. Our next question is from Keith, and then Wayne, and then Stuart.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, Mathis. Baba Mathis. I don't necessarily have a question, but I am like, so much is going through me right now. I mean, it is tapped into very uncomfortable places and then very empowering places in my spirit. And I just want to thank you for honoring and heeding to the calling of the ancestors, that this must come through you. And honor to the cast who brought their spirits and their love to this piece. I mean, my sensibilities were tapped into on so many levels. I was just like, wow. I mean, just in the things of Orishas being used in present day as people in the community. The teaching of that spiritual life right there. The connection between the drummers, the capoeiristas, and then that drummer on the subway, the African drums. I got all that continuum, you know, and one of the things I always talk to my students about, us connecting the dots for our young people, to seeing that their struggle did not just start today, it did not just start on ours. So, I mean, so the whole media in which you guys invested in this was brilliant, because it's almost different from seeing something live on stage. You were brought into so many elements of your sensibilities. You were just drawn and taken on this whole journey, and it provoked thought, like I said, that was very uncomfortable, but still very, very empowering. So I shade to you and that whole company, and just again, for you just honoring the healing of the ancestors, Stanley. Ashe, Baba. Ashe,
Yeah,
Baba.
they would not leave me alone, Keith.
Oh, Ayibo.
They would not. I would go, okay, it's 2:30 in the morning, I'm going to bed. And it's going, excuse me? No, you will not go to bed. You need to write. And I mean, literally. So I found it was like a Ouija board. I was just like writing stuff, and it was crazy. And when I started out with the first table reading was 205 pages. The second reading, so this ain't even, this ain't nowhere near, you know. Then it went from 205 pages to 115 pages to 115 pages to 87 pages. And then this particular evolution of it is 77 pages, because I wanted to get it down to, 90 minutes without an intermission.
It was very healing, very healing.
Well, hopefully, I'm hoping
Very
that
healing.
is cathartic.
I think it's just resonating now. I think about an hour now, tomorrow, days, it's going to be constantly streaming through the spirit. Just so, thank you, man. Thank you, brother, for.
I also wanted to be a piece for the community. I didn't want to. I know that I was in this apartment by myself, putting it down, but I was reaching out, so I could reach out to you and other people that I know. There are people who rap. I don't rap. There are people who do hip hop or juking or all of that kind of stuff. I don't know, but there are people in the community who do. And so I really want to pull in people in the community in on this, so that it doesn't become this elite piece of work. It's about the community. I want it to come from the community, the people themselves. You know what I mean? And I did it to be across the generation. So I have the elders, I have those in the middle, and then I have the babies. So that it crosses. It's not. I get. Sometimes you go see a play sometimes, and it's cool, But this one, I wanted to be intersectional. I wanted to make sure that I crossed languages and cultures and all of that includes the diaspora. And we think about what is when we think about things, diversity, sometimes we just think black and white. No,
right.
That you've hardly begun. Trust me. You know what I mean? There's a lot more going on in the community. So I just I did not want to leave out. And so I thought that I was writing something down, and it was very male dominated, men getting killed, boys getting killed. And then the spirit was like, excuse me. Pick up your phone. I picked up the phone, and a big old post came on. 64,000 Black women and girls have been missing. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that whole social media and those narratives happening at the same time was powerful.
Yeah, it's rough. It kicked my butt.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brother Wayne, and then Brother Stewart.
Hey, Wayne.
What's up, boy?
Listen.
Tell me about it. I need a minute. You're preaching to the choir, and the choir is here. I wanted to say, just commend the actors and your work on this, because you and I have been talking
for no time,
quite some time, about throughout the process. But I'm interested in hearing from them with such short notice, such a short rehearsal period, what the experience was like for them. Forgive him. Hey, Brian. He's just trying to upstage me. What the experience was like for them in the process, in such a short rehearsal time period.
Is anyone there from the cast that could answer?
Yes, it's Tina's here.
Hey, Tina.
I would miss this, boo. You know that. I was so excited. Well, I guess I can just, the interesting thing about all of this, Stanley and I go way back. And I did about 7 years ago, I became a hologram at the Lynching Museum, Alabama, with Brian Stevenson. So when I saw that you had taken some pictures of the outdoor dedication of those lynching columns, oh, just blew me away. I mean, so I have been kind of on that kind of journey with those kinds of projects that address our history to such a great degree. So when you said, okay, Tina, I got this thing and this is what, and then you came and you brought me all the costumes to my house. And then you showed me, okay, I want you to put this with this and this with this. I'm telling you, it was a moment of pure exhilaration for me. It was like I was in the right place with the right brother doing the right thing. And there were moments I wasn't sure if I could memorize, so I had to, read. But whatever it was, it seemed like the truth was coming through our experience with you and this magnificent piece and telling this story. And I'm a member of a book club that read the 1619 Project. And then from there we went to CAST. So I've just been immersed in our history. And since I come from the Temple of Islam at the age of 9 with Malcolm, it's a kind of a journey that I've kind of been on most of my life. But now I see that so much is going on. It was just participation time, Peanuts. Stanley's giving you an opportunity to participate. And I just threw myself in, and however you wanted me to utilize the speeches, the costumes, her spirit as this neighborhood individual that just kind of wanders around and talks about everybody, talks under their clothes. And I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. It didn't faze me so much about the short rehearsal period. I just wanted to focus when the opportunity came.
Thank you, Tina. Bless you. You were absolute blessing through the whole process. Trust me. So thank you so much for coming on board in good faith with this project. I saw Tina's hologram. That was the other thing too. I wanted to say to Keith and a couple of other folks is that I found myself. This is what I mean by spiritually driven. I would go on acting jobs, regional theaters around the country, but then I started ending up in cities, and I would end up like in I was teaching, I think, in Alabama, and then so something said, well, Stanley, go to where the church bombing took place. So I went to that, and then some said, well, Stanley, just about an hour away, you can go and visit the Lynching Museum. So I went to that. Then I ended up doing a play in Cincinnati King, and they have the Underground Railroad Museum. So I went to that. And then when we was on tour with the Book of Mormon, we were in Utah, and I was like, well, let me go check out Tulsa.
Oh, yes.
So I was always being called. And now that I think about it, all of that was preparing for me to write this piece. I didn't know why I was gathering up, but I was being called by the ancestors, they would direct me to places. They would send me places and go, okay. I realized that there are places all over this country where we have history. We have all this history that we don't know about. And to travel, as we do as performers, to travel in and out of different states and stuff, you know what I mean? So you stop and go, wait a minute, what's going on in Dallas? What can I check out in Dallas? And what can I check out, I went to Dallas and then I went to where Kennedy was shot, and then I went to Memphis, and then I went to where Martin Luther King. I went to that spot and I looked out that window, supposedly where the trajectory, with a bullet and all. I mean, all of that is spirit.
Yes.
That's all spirit driven, you know.
And to know that there are people who live in Tulsa,
Mm, 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 mm.
uh, of different age ranges that never even knew about that horrible destruction and killing that happened right there.
I mean, Tina,
And they talked about it
I'm
recently.
telling you, literally, we were looking. I took one of the cast members with me. We were looking at the photos and stuff, and now we noticed the janitor cleaning and sweeping up and stuff, and he was observing us, and we were talking. And we, of course, we're shaking our heads and stuff, and he just stepped over and went, "You know why that really happened?" And he was like giving us the inside story, not the story that they tell you. He was giving us the inside story about why that really happened, how that really came out, and that the boy and the girl, that they knew each other and they were dating. But they, all of a sudden, it became this whole story about, him brushing up against her on the elevator, blah, blah, blah. All of that, which doesn't really make sense when you think about it. You just wouldn't do that in those conditions. But he was like, they knew each other, and they were dating. And they found out, the white folks found out.
Right.
And
right.
they had to get both of them out of town. And we ain't heard from neither one of them since. That kind of, you know what I'm saying? But spirit put that man in my face to tell me that. And I was like, whew, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at the plaque with, doctors, lawyers, bankers, the whole town. I mean, it was like, and they burnt it to the ground, bombed it from overhead.
Yes, the government was on it.
It was in cahoots. It's like, where would we be? I get so sick of a lot of people saying that people who, because they learn about African Americans through white media, they think, well, how come they haven't done better? How come they're not moving forward? Where would we be if they just stayed out of our way and let us?
Well, you don't want to know that answer.
Ooh, funny.
Where would we be? Where would Slocum be? Where would some of the other places that they just burned, black townships that they burned to the ground?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
1985.
More recent. So yeah, it's all of that. You and I don't care if you're black or white or I don't care what color you are. If you're in this country, that history is important, so you know how to respect and treat each other. You know what I mean? When I went to Hawaii, I learned a lot about why Hawaii is what it is today, and it wasn't cute either.
Right.
Okay, it's not a pretty story. You literally locked up the monarch in a tower somewhere like she was Rapunzel, and locked her away, and just took over.
Yeah.
You're like, oh Jesus,
We
this is
got
a horrible situation here.
We got one more question. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Stanley. We got one more question from Brother Stuart Crawford.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you.
Stanley, wow. I am just blown away by you and the cast and this production. It is something. I just want to introduce you to, this is Karen. This is my wife.
Hey, Karen.
She saved me from jails, institutions, and death. I'd be gone without her today. 7 years sober.
Thank you.
And I've been able to get out of the mire and start re-educating myself on a lot of things in life. So to you and your writings and the cast and your producer savior, and you and your being called and your spirit all around the country to put this together, this is good. And I don't find it inconvenient. I find this enlightening. Now I got to get my glasses on here. There's a lovely comment. Keith Williams was talking about uncomfortability or something. I've been doing a little bit of writing too recently from some past experiences I've had in life. And you have to read, and then you have to research, and you got to do some fact checking. And there was one thing I learned when I was at school for acting and singing and dancing, and that was, you don't want to scare people. This was what I learned, But recently I read something that was really great, which is it's okay to make people uncomfortable with art. And you just did it so eloquently. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you were my cast member, and I will carry that for life. And gosh, this is just wonderful. And, you know, praise to you and praise to spirits.
Thank you.
God bless you, Stanley.
Incredible.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Yeah,
And
I
thank
really
you all.
realized that the uncomfortability of it. I realized that I grew up in DC, and a lot of the theater that we did talked about what our lives, what we were going through. And just this is like, not that I like all rap music, but a lot of the rap music you hear it's not pretty. It's not comfortable. It is what they're going through. And so it's not about you being made to feel good and comfortable. There are shows like that. There's a place for shows like that, and there's a place for a show like this. There's there's room for all of it. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna sing and dance and la-di-da through this subject matter. We're just not gonna do that. So it's not Ain't Misbehaving, and it ain't Dream Girls, and it ain't, even Dream Girls touched on some uncomfortable stuff when I saw it. You know what I mean? The same thing with Hair. I was one of the most brilliant musicals of its time. They weren't talking about comfortable stuff. We were in the middle of Vietnam War, and they were confronting that. Same thing with Rent.
Miss Saigon.
Miss Saigon. So, there are pieces like that. And I had somebody who came to one of the readings say to me, well, what audience do you see for this? Where do you see it going? I'm like, well, you're a producer. That's your work. I'm just trying to write the piece. I just want to write what I want to see and hear, what I am moved to write. I'm not writing thinking about I'm trying to get this to Broadway or thinking about the art. Otherwise, I would not be true to what my own voice if I did that. So as a writer, I just needed to write what was true to me. And you can figure out the marketing. That's your job. That's not my job.
We got 2 more questions here.
Thank you, Stanley. I'll sign off.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Thank you for coming. We have Sister Nancy and Sister Adrian Lennox.
Okay.
And so Nancy first, and then
I was just going to say that, in this crazy life that we're all living now, and I love that you called it a damn-demic, because it is, but we are all so isolated, and so much is in reality. So what do? Do you like scream at the top of your lungs at your television because you can't stand it anymore? No, this is the community. And with the stories you tell, if we don't tell these stories, they ain't getting told. And I know you know that, but just to affect the next person, and the way you and your cast has affected just us, it really is about finding a way to get it out to the masses, and people will listen. People will see and they will listen. And what you have done here is such.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
We'll see how it resonates. But for me,
just
to write a play was a huge accomplishment. To finally put the in, I was like, I did it.
I say.
Sister Adrian, you want to unmute?
Dude, hey man. For heaven's sake. Well,
hey, Adrian.
Who is that? Hey, who is that?
That was Tina.
What up, Tina? Anyway, God bless you. So
God bless you, sweetheart.
God is good. I am trying to find out when it's going to be done. Stanley, I told you I was going to be shooting today. And so, of course, I just got home. And so I missed it. So when shall I see it? How can I see it? What's happening, man?
Okay, Kimberly.
Well, we're gonna try to put it on Facebook. I don't know, YouTube. Excuse me. And we recorded. We're recording this,
Okay.
and we'll try to put it up on YouTube.
Mhm.
So I'll let you know.
Yes, yes, because I was so excited. I was in on some of it, having gone by Stanley's house apartment and seeing him put all these clothes together and all these artifacts and this, that, and the other. I was like, Stanley, what is happening right now? And so I didn't even realize that Stanley tells me that he actually has studied art. I said, oh, so that's how you got your fashion sense. He actually has like a real, education, artistic education. I said, well, okay, that explains it. I said, why don't you let me have some of these clothes once you're done? But anyway, that's it. So just let me know when I
I
can
know
see
she
it. That's
did
all.
say it.
Will do, Adrian. Will
Thank
do.
you.
I just want to say one thing that what Wayne and I think Marion Kathy said they in the comments about make sure you have this copyright and everything before you
Yes.
go any further.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Yep.
has been. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Brian and Marion.
Yeah.
Two words, and we'll make sure to get that taken care of for both show. So
Bobby Day actually wrote that song. I wrote the poem Sorosoke, and Bobby Day composed the music to it and put it into music. So that was very exciting. I think Bobby Day was like, he had heard, I think I did an interview with Angela Robinson on her podcast, and he just called, he was like, I wanna do something in it. I was like, hey, here's a poem. Can you put that to music? And he put it to music, and I was so happy when I heard it. I was like, oh my God, our first original piece of music. Because, you notice I used a lot of spirituals because, I don't want to get into trouble with the rights. I'm using as much, eminent domain. What is it called?
That's it. Eminent domain.
Public domain.
Public domain.
Public
Right.
domain material as possible, just to stay out of trouble from the very beginning. But I'm hoping to bring in other artists who, hopefully if they saw it, dancers, if they saw it, singers, writers, composers, if they saw it and they will move them somehow and says, look, how can I help? How can I be a part of this? It would be great because like I said, I don't want it to be just me. I would love it to be the community.
Absolutely. Well, it's about 9:30, and so we have taken up a nice little chunk of everybody's
Guys for sticking around.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and for giving Stanley your feedback. And thank you again for the cast and for James Alexander for all this beautiful photography. And thank you, Stanley, for listening to the spirit.
Pratt, who came in and did a little solo for us.
Yeah.
I said his name before, but thank you, Travis. When I am laid in earth, he sang. I said, can you sing it in Mantine's key? Sure. I said, because I want that bizarre dichotomy of, he said, well, how do you want me to dress? I said, put on a suit and tie and just put yourself on camera and just sing it. And so I did.
He really sang that?
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
And I didn't show him right in the beginning because I didn't want to give it away.
I didn't know Nathan had those notes. I'm okay. I'm impressed.
and before everybody leaves, he's been the background here, but I really want to thank Mr. Tyron Williams for his excellent video editing and also for hosting this Zoom tonight. He's been amazing, and he has
brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had some even more challenges, than one would think, and he's just persevered through all of it. And I just really want to take this opportunity to thank him so much for being such a creative person and open spirit and just a all around great guy. So thank you, Tyron. We really appreciate everything. We could not have done this without you. So
thank you all for the opportunity.
No, thank you. So everybody have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much. And we really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Love you.
Love you too.
Everybody.